and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Bleckman. Phil, how's it going, man?
What is up, dude? We're talking about some winners and losers of Kamigawa today. It's nice to be able to have an episode like this where we can reflect a little bit on things that we thought were good, things that didn't pan out the way we thought. But like, man, was that set really good? Like when we were looking back on it, it was really good. Anyway, I'm disrupting the intro. Keep going.
Yeah, so well, just what you said. Like this is sort of a sunset episode for Kamigawa. We're like a week away from the beginning of spoilers, so we thought we'd look back at Kamigawa and see what they did right, what they did wrong. We got 5 losers, we've got 10 winners, and we'll just kind of go over the cards that we loved and hated from this set. So let's start with the haters, though, right?
The cards that we hated, or the ones that didn't do well?
Well, not the cards that we hated. Sorry, start with the losers. The haters. Hey, if you're a hater, don't like and subscribe. You shouldn't. You shouldn't like and subscribe. If you're not a hater, then you should. But
I think the haters need their own tier on Patreon.
Yeah, the hater tier. That's the mind twist tier.
So for as we go through these, there are a lot of winners. Like obviously, Kamigawa had a huge impact across a bunch of formats. We decided that to keep this tight, we're only going to be talking about Legacy. So even though a bunch of cards that are losers in Legacy may have found homes in Pioneer or Modern, and like Kamigawa made those formats awesome. Like if you haven't played Pioneer recently, Pioneer is fantastic right now. But we're only going to be talking about Legacy. First things first, we're going to go into the big hitter, mainstay headliner from the set, and that's Jin Gitaxias. So Jin Gitaxias, 5 mana, 7 mana, 5/5, does a whole bunch of relevant text, but Griselbrand exists.
Yeah, well, Griselbrand exists. I expected to see this as maybe a one-of in like Reanimator or something, and this card just didn't. It won the one. It won the one.
Yeah.
I think that a 5/5 just isn't big enough. If this was slightly bigger, maybe it would have seen a little bit of play. But 5/5 ain't enough. And the ability is cute, but like you already have that in your Chancellor of the Annex and stuff like that. So I think if you want to play a card that's not Griselbrand, you're playing Archon of Cruelty now. Like they're playing 4 Archon of Cruelty and like maybe an Angel of Serenity here or there as their non-Griselbrand targets.
You kind of nailed it there. It's like not only is it not Griselbrand, but also the best things since Griselbrand that were printed are Modern Horizons cards.
Yeah.
And to compete with Modern Horizons cards, like, man, Jin Gitaxias' text is really powerful. Like just countering stuff like costs nothing, just like it sits on the table and is this static, really powerful ability. It's just another one of those cards that's like on the very tall stack of like, if the best thing that they've ever made and will ever make in Griselbrand didn't exist, how many other things would get the call? And it's pretty clear that at this point it's the Modern Horizons 2 cards, and then maybe Jin Gitaxias would be in that mix in some capacity. But now you also have Hullbreaker Horror that would like like the successor to Tidespout Tyrant. So there's a lot of different ways that Reanimator could play, and it will just never know because Griselbrand is in the format.
So number 5, Jin Gitaxias. Number 4, Eater of Virtue. I thought this card, being a 1-mana artifact, might have seen a little bit of a tick somewhere. Like because Urza Saga exists, you can get it with Urza Saga. But people just don't care.
There was that legendary. So everybody who's curious, the Eater of Virtue is the 1-mana legendary sword that cares about legends. The legendary aggro deck with Yoshimaru, when it first popped up, when the set first came out, I thought that may have had some legs, just because that card hit really hard, and not many decks are really prepared to just get blitzed like that. Like it reminded me very much of Madness, like the Madness style Vengevine deck. Yeah. But that deck can be hated out more reasonably, because if you just fight over the LED, the deck just doesn't really do anything. Whereas the aggro, like the legendary aggro deck, was just an authentic like play cheap creatures, they're huge, turn them sideways, get in there, beat you. And I thought that like maybe it would wedge a spot in the format as just being able to like have uncontested kills on turn 3 potentially with fast aggro draws consistently. But what ended up happening is like the only aggro deck that really came out of Kamigawa was like the black-white humans deck. Like the humans deck just evolved to just be black-white, and gained one of the legendary lands in Eiganjo as part of its suite. But yeah, once that legendary creature aggro deck sort of petered out, it seemed like this was just going to end up never making it.
Yeah. All right, number 3 for losers, Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh.
It pains me that this card wasn't good enough. I have tried it. For what it's worth, I have tried it in Legacy. I tried playing it in a 4X Retrofitter deck because you want to be able to maximize its static ability of giving you a 2-mana discount on your first artifact activation. So if you can leverage that on both your turn and your opponent's turn, you're netting 4 mana a turn. And I thought the most effective way to do that because you obviously have to play an Urza Saga shell if you're going to be able to play artifacts in Legacy, that Retrofitter Foundry being able to net 4 mana every turn cycle with a Tezzeret on the table would be a way to abuse it. But what Tezzeret's other abilities really want is you really want to be able to leverage the draw 2, discard a card if it's an artifact, or 2. So it's essentially DAC, but has an artifact skew. But the real power point behind it is that it ultimates at 6 loyalty. So it comes in, goes to 5, then goes to 6, and then ultimate. So it's 2 turns, and then the ultimate is just flat unbeatable. It's whenever an artifact is tapped, you draw a card. Taps for any reason. So it's like if you can get to that point, that is something to build around, right? Like that's an ultimate to build around. The problem is that really skews you to wanting to play a control shell, and the combination of wanting to play good control cards that are like actually playable and good artifacts. All of the artifacts don't signify play a control deck.
Yeah, and even in that scenario, like in a control shell, you're probably, because your artifacts, right, you're probably playing Baleful Strix, which doesn't get any bonus from his static ability, right? And that static ability to me just reads as something that you should try and abuse if you're going to play it. Yeah. And that we just I just can't find something, especially because it's every turn and not just your turn, right? So I haven't found any artifacts that like really do it for me, that are like, pay 1 mana, draw a card, pay 4 mana, draw a card, or something like that doesn't tap, Yeah. There's just nothing that's like that hits that rate. And I feel like this card we might see this card later on when they print an artifact that has a repeatable ability that costs like 2 mana, and that you can activate every single turn. Like, I don't know. I think this card has legs, but its time is just not right now.
It's not right now. I mean, I will say that one thing that also threw me is that the static sees the whole turn. So like you can't use artifact mana and then also get the benefit after you've put them onto the board. So if you tap like a Mox Opal or a Seed of the Synod to cast it, then it won't, you've already activated an artifact for the turn. So you won't get the discount immediately. So that hindered it. And it discounts artifacts, which technically means that it's an artifact in play, not an artifact card. Yeah. Because there is something like Moonsnare Prototype that is an artifact that you could channel, but because if it discounted that channel because it's an artifact but it's in hand, that would be big game, right? Yeah. If I could play this and then still have like an uncounterable removal spell in my hand to protect it, that's huge. But because it doesn't do that, and because it sees the whole turn, there were a lot of like after the fact hiccups with the card. But I agree. I mean, what I ran into when I was testing it was I found that it's not more powerful than Urza Saga, obviously, right? But Urza Saga, when you lose the land and setting yourself back a land drop, if you don't use Urza Saga to get a Mox Opal or something to make up that mana loss, I mean, I was using it to get Retrofitter Foundry because that was the point of the deck. But if you don't get a mana source, now you've set yourself back a land, and all of a sudden that 4-drop is a lot further away. So it doesn't play, it plays well with Retrofitter Foundry, but it doesn't play well with Urza Saga. So there's a tension in that kind of deck building that I really struggled to make work. The thing is that like, as powerful as Tezzeret is, it's not more powerful than Urza Saga. So it's never going to be able to like compete for that slot. So you really have to skew your deck. And so it pushed it further and further down into what we have as the losers category. But I really do hope that there are tools printed for it to come around, because that ultimate is insane. It's
Retrofitter Foundry is probably the best version of a card that works really well with this. It's just like a little too expensive to like really get in there with it. It's a little too grindy too. I think Retrofitter Foundry is great in Death and Taxes and in what's called 8-cast, where you can really use it to its best advantage. But if you're just using it as like a win condition in a deck, it that doesn't actually exist already. It just doesn't do all the things it needs to do just yet. I think that we're very close with this card, but it's not there yet.
What we have found is that like they're willing to start exploring. They've shown that they're willing to explore a lot more with planeswalkers, like Flash on the Wandering Emperor and static abilities in general, becoming just like part of what walkers are. They just have static abilities now.
Yeah.
I think one thing that eventually we'll get to is exploring with multiple card types on planeswalkers. Like there's been multiple times between Karns and Tezzes where they could have had legendary artifact, right? Yeah. In which case it's like way better because now you have all the artifact synergies that go with it, but then it's also susceptible to artifact hate. Yeah. So like if Null Rod is on the table, not being able to activate your planeswalker is a pretty big downside.
That's rough, yeah.
But I'm waiting for the time where like they also had the opportunity with Tameo and Tameo completed from this set where it could have been an artifact because of Phyrexia, but they haven't dipped into that space yet. But it's clearly design space that's available to them. And I'm curious if they go with that. And Tezzeret would obviously be a really powerful way to go with that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is Saturo Umezawa.
So again, for Legacy, this one was just a meme in Legacy. It didn't actually pan out to be good enough. There's not really much I don't have much to say on this guy.
There's really not a lot to say. Yeah.
Obviously a haymaker in EDH, like you play this and everybody knows exactly what you're doing and has to kill it on site.
Yep. And I have that deck. It's fun, but like I don't know. My play group isn't all about like throwing a Blightsteel Colossus in someone's face, so I don't play it that much.
What I found about like Satoru, like the ability, paying off the ability by putting just a large fatty into play, it's like it reminds me of every time I've ever played Show and Tell. The gameplay always feels exactly the same every time, and it gets boring pretty quickly. But some people really enjoy doing that. So I mean, this ended up being a meme, and you may run into it at an FNM, but that's pretty much it. Yeah,
it's just less good than Show and Tell, right?
Yeah.
All right, number 1 is Sickenzan, Crucible of Defiance.
Yeah, so this is part of the Legendary Land Cycle. Obviously, the Legendary Land Cycle is probably the biggest hits from this set in terms of Legacy playability. This one hasn't stuck, and it's interesting. There were a bunch of dials that they could have turned, and it would have easily made Legacy in some capacity. So the ones are spirits. Yeah. I remember Goblin Lackey 1 on Twitter was upset because they could have been goblins.
They could have been goblins.
Had they been goblins, it would have been a sure-in lock for at least the goblins deck. I also wondered if the Legends deck could have branched into this as well as a way to just make more bodies and get it on the cheap, because this is one of the more expensive lands. It costs 4 mana to channel, but it still has the discount clause. So it's possible that had it found a home with more Legends in it to like spew 1/1s. I wonder if there's ever going to be like an aristocratian style deck with enough Legends to support this as a way to just make cheap bodies.
Yeah,
it's possible because the fact that once you go in above 2, well, you can play 2 of a legendary land for the most part, and it's close to free if you're not worried about Wasteland, because the first one you get, it just is an untapped land, and it at all points in the game, so it's fine. And then the second one, hopefully you can convert for its spell. So if you're playing anything beyond the second, you're really interested in the effect as part of your strategy. And I kept thinking about Sickenzan as something for aristocrats, but you really need to get the discount. Like 4 mana for 2 1/1s, even if it's uncounterable, isn't that great.
Yeah,
you need a way to get it down to 1 to 2 mana, which means that you really need to be in Legends or have some kind of legend density. And there's just no deck like that exists, so it just never found a home.
I do appreciate that it's an instant and it's uncounterable, so that you can like flash it in and kill a Jace or something like that. Right. But we're already ready for that kind of stuff. Like, how many times have you bounced a creature and then someone's like, okay, well, I'll flash in my Snapcaster and kill your Jace. So
yeah, the format is also so much faster now that like it's like any walker that's not 3 mana, and specifically the ones that have like relevant static abilities, like taking down walkers has never really been easier. I mean, Narset and Teferi are special because their static abilities prison your gameplay.
Yeah.
So it's like they fight on a whole different axis. But for the most part, like taking it on a Jace, I feel like is easier than it's ever been. And I play a lot of Jace, so I would know.
Yeah. Okay. So that is our losers from the set. Let's talk about our winners. And I guess we'll start with we got 10 winners and 1 honorable mention. And I think everybody kind of agrees with me here. Those Woodcut basics, man. Honorable mention to those Woodcut basics. They just look so good.
The full art basic lands, Yeah, and my local shop, if anybody's playing like I play altered basics, like I have my altered basics and I'm sticking with them forever, but like I would
These are pre-altered basics.
Yeah, if I didn't have altered basics, these are the ones that I'd go with. And everybody that I know at my shop, all is on these lands.
They look
it
so
would be
nice.
really, really hard for another set to come out with lands that are more beautiful than the full arts from this one.
If I could say one thing though, loser of these lands is the red swamp that looks like a mountain.
The one with like in the city and whatnot. Yeah, I saw somebody had shared a like a variant of it where instead of the color being red, they skewed it, they like color shifted
to purple or something. Yeah,
and great. So it looked really, really nice. I mean, either way, it's a stunning land.
They all look great. They all look great. Just that one I looked at and was like, is this a mountain? What's going on?
Same thing. I remember somebody also photoshopped it and just wrote Badlands instead of swamp. And it was like, oh,
it is Badlands.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about number 10. And that is the premium cards from the collector set. I really appreciate that they have made cards that are accessibly expensive as like a lottery ticket. We're playing Legacy. Sometimes you just want to open a lottery ticket and trade it for a dual land, and that exists. Like you can get the what's called the premium Hidetsugu. Yeah, you can get the premium Hidetsugu, and it's like $1,500.
One thing that's really great about about the way that they did these particular promos, right, is that there's the promo versions that are worth absurd dollars for collectors, but then you also have the version that's like 75 cents.
Yeah, like this. I mean, this card is not worth anything other than like there is a very limited number of the alternate versions of it out there, and thusly our collector's items. And this is an experiment. They're gonna up the rate of these things, I feel like, as sets come around. But that's great because I like to pick up a couple collector's boosters, occasionally a whole box when a set comes out. Just as like, oh, can I open like the lottery? Like I opened a Phyrexian Jin Gitaxias foil. Sick. That's $100. I spent $30 on a pack. I got $100. Plus I got a bunch of other stuff, right? Amazing. That's cool. I love the scratchy lotto like ability on that is almost gambling, but you can actually play with these cards too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, functionally, it is gambling, right? Like if you're buying packs solely to crack them, it is gambling. But what I appreciate about these particular promos about being collector's items is that they are solely that. Like they don't have. There's nothing about them that it changes gameplay at all. There's nothing about it that it's like, oh, if you really want to play a deck, you're priced out because these cards are only available.
You can get the cheaper one. It's great.
That's the way to do collectors things. It's like it is entirely luxury for the sake of it, and that's it. It doesn't hinder your ability to play the game. You can still have your toys, and it's fine. It is entirely like aesthetic luxury, and that's the way to do promos, because then everybody wins. Because if you're a collector and you collect it, you did it. You achieved you unlocked the achievement. But if you just want to play, you can do that too without having to worry about your bank getting busted or just being priced out of that deck entirely.
It's good for the player. It's good for the collector, and it's also good for Wizards because more people are going to buy packs trying to get that stuff. So
home run all around.
It's a home run all around. All right, number 9. Bankbuster, come at me.
I have not seen this in any lists at all. I'm amazed that you put this on our list. I'll let you take the reins on this.
So our boy from MTGO, Punishingwaterfalls, has been playing this in a like Shorikai sort of blue-white build, and it's been overperforming. It looks like it's just like a pretty solid. I've been playing it in EDH too, and it's just a solid like. Put 2 mana in there and then pay 2 mana, draw a card, pay 2 mana, draw a card, pay 2 mana. And that is almost good enough, in my opinion, to be played with Tezzeret. Because then you're just tapping it every turn to draw a card. To me, I don't know. Like I think that this card is really interesting, and it just feels good enough to see play in a lot of decks. And if you're playing a deck with like Wrath effects, That's great. Like you're gonna eventually get there with this card because it makes pilots, and then you can even pilot it to finish the game off.
Yeah, I was double checking to looking at the text to make sure that I remembered what this card did. I mean, poor went out for JM Day Tome, am I right?
Right?
But,
yeah, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of putting it with Tez, like my experience playing Tez, I played it for a while, trying to make it work. My issue with with being like you could play it with another card like that is like you already have to do so much work to make Tez good that also having to do work to make Bankbuster good. I mean, maybe it was just a meme like Punishingwaterfalls. Maybe he crushed it. I don't know. Maybe he found the hidden gem and nobody else has piled onto it yet or tried to tune it. But it seems like this one's too much work.
It's a little bit of work for sure. Yeah,
it seems like it's too much work to make it. But like, if suddenly the leagues become overrun with Bankbusters just running town, like
I told you so. I told you so. Yeah, but that's a shout out. That's a shout out to Punishingwaterfalls. Anyhow,
I would love to
check out his check out his content because he's making some really cool decks and sharing them on YouTube. Anyhow, so I think actually he might have was he on Leaving a Legacy like a week ago or something like that too.
I don't know. I mean,
somebody just interviewed him just recently too.
One thing I do know is that regarding, if he's got a cool deck list or any other deck list, I mean, you should probably check out MoxField.
Yeah, indeed. You should check out MoxField. MoxField.com is a great deck building website. So you can share your deck list there. Obviously, it works on your PC or your Mac, but then it also works without an app on all of your mobile browsers as well. It's also a great place.
MoxField's great. I got nothing else. I got nothing else to say.
It's a great place. It's a great place to share your EDH decks. It's also a great place to share your legacy decks at. So yeah, just check out the link below, moxfield.com, join up, share your decks. It's that simple.
Too easy.
All right. So then number 8 is Lion Sash.
Nothing really to say also about this one. This was one of the rare instances where everybody unanimously recognized that this card was going to be playable in exactly one way, and that's with Stoneforge Mystic, and that it was exactly playable in exactly that way.
Yep,
and that was it.
It's this card is the textbook version of expectations met.
It was neither better nor worse than anybody thought. It was exactly what everybody thought it would be.
It's a solid number 8 on the list.
Perfect for the number 8 slot.
Yes, perfect for the number 8 slot. All right, let's talk about Moon Circuit Hacker at number 7.
All right, man, let me tell you, I have been on a ninja kick. I love that deck. I love playing ninjas. It is great. Look, one thing that I found about the deck as I was playing, I was like, man, those slots are tight. Like that deck is so tight with what it needs, because it needs so many different things. It needs the enablers, it needs the payoffs, but then the payoffs are all things that draw cards. So you want to be able to have cards to draw to that matter, that aren't just more enablers or more payoffs that just draw more cards, but then don't give you any other access to do anything else. Like, it is very constrained in like where you can get any additional stuff that isn't, 1 mana cards that can attack safely with evasion versus, putting an Ophidian into play. Like, it's just a bunch of enablers and Ophidians, and that's it. So finding any ways to pay that off is really difficult. But Moon Circuit Hacker, being an Ophidian ninja, or it's essentially a ninja of the deep hours that comes into play for 1 mana off a ninjutsu instead of 2, is huge.
Yeah.
Not only like the difference between 1 and 2 mana on turn 2, when let's say you play an evasive creature on turn 1, you want to be able to get a ninja in on turn 2. Ninjutsu gets around counter magic, but the fact that you get to put this in off 1 mana means that you can potentially have 1 mana interaction to protect it after you've ninjutsu'd a creature back. Or on that same turn, if you have a second mana source, you have ninjutsu'd in your Moon Circuit Hacker. You've drawn a card, and now you can redeploy that same 1-drop that you had to continue rolling on getting more ninjas into play without having to play shit like Ornithopter. Like the problem with Ornithopter is that it's just the evasive creature, but it does nothing else.
It's not great, yeah. So what about we'll pop it up over here, but answer my question for me. Fairy Guide Mother is a 1-drop, right? What is the adventure for it? Is that 1-drop as well?
No, the adventure is a sorcery speed 1 white that gives a creature +2/+1 in flying. I tried out a blue-white ninjas list essentially because it's a 1-mana enabler. I wanted good removal and source of plowshares, and then the adventure allows your creatures to continue hitting through combat.
Yep.
And then you get to play an enabler again. So it kind of did everything that I wanted, and then it paired really nicely with Spellstutter Sprite, which was just one of the payoffs, if you will, of playing ninjas, because you get to pick up a counter spell all the time. The issue with that sort of thing, though, is that those are like, it's fine, like it's a good role player, but it has the same problem in that it's just not a legacy power level card. You know, like that's the problem with ninjas, is you have to play a bunch of underpowered, not legacy playables in order to enable legacy playables.
Yeah.
And those legacy playables are only good if they're enabled. So it's a very, very, but I mean, I think that's why the deck is so interesting, is because there's so much push-pull that you have to try and navigate and find in both deck building and gameplay. And there's so many decisions that you get to make in gameplay because you have to care about every single step in combat, because you can ninjutsu anytime an unblocked attacking creatures happen, pre-damage, post-damage, end of combat. There's a ton of different things. When you pick stuff up, you can interact in between those steps. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Combinations with first strike and all that stuff. But Moon Circuit Hacker in particular just enables your turn 2 so much better. And because it's a 1-mana ninja that you can put into play off a ninjutsu, it means that you can sort of move your deck a little bit closer to days, which the deck had, you know, if you look at some ninjas list, there would be in like 2 days, maybe 3 days, maybe no days at all. And a lot of it because if you're playing days, you're picking yourself up a land, and that's setting you back on being able to really put both ninjas into play and be able to continue playing enablers to continue ninjutsuing.
It's the conundrum that deck has to struggle with. Yeah, it's
the conundrum. So Moon Circuit Hacker lopping a mana off of its ninjutsu really opens up your turn 2s in a way that no other ninja has before, and it may be less powerful than the other ninjas. Like, it doesn't trigger on every ninja that hits the way Infiltrator does or the way Yuriko does, but solely for the fact that it opens up your turn 2s to have so much more possibilities means that it really progresses that deck in a way that I think is substantial. Now, granted, I don't think the deck is ever going to be in a position above tier 2/5, right? Like, it's a tribal role player deck. It's not doing, it has no combo finish. It has to attack. It has to be done in combat. And if you're looking to do tempo style shenanigans like that, you're probably just playing better. You're probably better playing
Merfolk.
But we're playing Merfolk, yeah. But for people who liked playing ninjas or enjoy that style of deck, I mean, I certainly do. Moon Circuit Hacker has opened up a bunch of avenues for that in the early game to also incline choices like playing more Dazes or playing more Wastelands, because now you can operate on your first 2 turns off of 1 blue source and then be able to use other resources for other things. So whether it's Daze or whether it's Wasteland or whether it's finding a second source to play your enabler again. For me, this is a perfect number 7 because it opens up a deck in a way that is very unique, even though it uploads the density of more ninjas, but it's obviously not going to pick that deck up into tier 1 or anything. So it's solid at number 7, but in my mind, it's absolutely a winner from the set.
Moon Circuit Hacker spicing up your local, right?
I will play ninjas and never get bored of it. The deck is just, there's so many ways to build it. It's just fantastic.
All right, and so number 6 is Shorikai Genesis Engine.
Once again, I remember us talking about it at first because the ability is very powerful when you activate it. I mean, granted, you're paying 5 mana to get it, but you go up a card plus a body. So, I mean, cool, but like, once again, I'm going to let you talk about this because I haven't seen this anywhere. I've seen people speculate on it, but I haven't seen any success.
So again, Punishingwaterfalls was playing this in that actual same deck as the Surge Hacker card, but he's been playing this for a little bit longer and basically just playing in a Days Undoing deck as one of your win conditions, and it seems to be working really good. And you can also play it in like a Miracles deck, because this is a card that presents a threat on the board that gets around wrath effects. It's drawing you extra cards. It's feeding your graveyard. So if you're playing Snapcaster Mage and whatnot, really good. But seeing that this card's actually getting a little bit of play just proves to me that this is a great pickup anyhow. And it's just like, it just is a fun card to put onto the battlefield. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it actually has like some ability to see play in the format is like where it jumps above like Lion Sash and Moon Circuit Hacker, where you can slot this into an already existing metagame deck.
Okay, so you're saying that like it's essentially, it's shown up and it's done work, but it's kind of filling the same role as any payoff in those decks.
Exactly. So we're finally seeing cards that are making it into real decks at the number 6 through 5 spot. All right, so number 5 on the list is Eiganjo, Seat of the Empire. This has become like sort of a one of in a lot of decks that can just support it.
One of it, a lot of decks. I've seen it. I've seen it upwards of 2 ofs in D&T. It's I've seen it as a 3 of in that new Black-White Humans deck. I mean, new Black-White Humans deck. I mean, Humans has been around. They're just like refining. But I mean, yeah, this is totally solid number 5 on this list. Like,
you know what's
like you have to, if there's a deck that you think might be playing a Ganjo, you do have to now think about it whenever you're attacking into open mana.
Well, this is the thing on top of that is like, let's say I'm swinging in with Thalia and you have a Grizzlebrand on the board, right? And you maybe she's equipped, right? Got the first strike, right? So she's like a 4, you know, coming in. Now you have to decide whether or not you want to lose your Grizzlebrand to a block to save you 4 life.
No blocks. No
yeah,
blocks.
You're like, no blocks, I'm good. Because this is a 4 damage target attacking or blocking creature. So if you can sneak your opponent into like doing something dumb like blocking Grizzlebrand, like, or if you just swing in with all your guys that have 3 or more power, you could trade with a Grizzlebrand, right? Sure, you gain 7 life, but that Grizzlebrand's dead now. You can't use it to draw cards.
Yeah, I mean, blanket heuristic, no blocks.
Blanket heuristic, no blocks.
Mana, unless it's lethal, no blocks.
Yeah, but this is so this is like sort of the ground floor as to what is like playable for these lands in Legacy. Is like it doesn't affect your mana base that much. You're playing an 80 card deck, so you're like, might as well throw one in there, right? And it makes your opponent have to play like draft smarts, right? Like you have to worry about combat tricks now. Like that's a whole like mental map that most Legacy players aren't even messing with. Like nobody expects to get like a giant growth hit on them when they're attacking into something, or like that. To me, this is awesome card because you can just blow people out because they're not playing around draft tricks.
I will say I do enjoy that. Like Legacy, if you're playing anytime you're choosing something over a basic land, there is a way to get punished for that because Wasteland exists.
Yeah,
these lands, in combination with the MDFC lands from, I forget which set, but essentially where you can choose which, if you want it to be an island or a swamp.
Oh yeah, Kaldheim. Yeah,
from Kaldheim. Yeah. So if you look at younger formats, mana bases outside of 1-color decks having any basics in them at all is surprising. Like we've reached the density in younger formats because there's no way to punish it, that basic islands have just been obsoleted for the most part.
Yeah.
Because you have untapped lands like this that also do other things that cost you nothing. Like the first one in formats where you can't get punished for non-basics costs you actual nothing. Yeah. And then the second one only punishes you if you draw both. So I think like that design space for Legacy at least, it's fine because there's a way to punish it. There's a check. For the younger formats, it just seems like it's lazy design. Like it's just better than basic land. But I mean, yeah, Eiganjo, no blocks, just no blocks.
No blocks.
Please don't.
Yeah.
I have run into this. Like you only need to ever run your mentor and the monks into combat to get your monastery mentor hit by an Eiganjo once before you never do it again.
Yep.
Never. Don't fall into the trap.
All right, number 4, the Wandering Emperor.
True or false? Did you think that this was going to show up as in the numbers that it has?
No, it's crazy. Like I mean, dude, we missed on this one. I know we did. I don't remember what we said, but we were just like, whatever. Like play Gideon instead. Like but like this card is seeing like legit play, and I think it's just because it has flash. Like you could like being able to hold up mana and then be like, okay, at the end of your turn, I'll flash her in. Like I think that's a big part of this card.
I think like it's the combination of flash, but it's also the combination that it's a 4-mana non-blue card. So the fact that it doesn't get hit by Pyroblast, and then it's very difficult in Jeskai Mirrors for Prismatic Ending to hit it, means that it's kind of in a sweet spot with where the removal is, that it matters. And I think that the being able to hold up mana and flashing it in is relevant only because it allows you 2 activations of it before your opponent gets to untap. Because you flash it in, you can activate it, and then you untap and you activate it again. Yeah. So getting 2 activations is really what, like, the abilities are fine. Like, obviously the abilities are playable abilities, but I think it just threads this very narrow line of exactly what that sort of threat needs to be in order to exist in Legacy in the current environment. It's one of those things where I absolutely could see the second that the removal pivots or changes in any meaningful way, Wandering Emperor will be the first cut. But the thing is that Prismatic Ending, I think Prismatic Ending is here for the long haul. I don't see that going away anytime
not
soon.
Going anywhere, no.
And then Pyroblast, because of the bannings just pushing Narset and Teferi into this realm of tier 1, that Pyroblast is just going to continue to be necessary, also because of all the blue-red Delver. So I guess Wandering Emperor is just going to be a go-to option as a 1 or 2 of for a while, because I don't see that format texture changing anytime soon.
And at $25, man, pick your copies up now.
It went up, man, way up.
Is it like 35 now?
No. It wasn't 25 when it first released. It was like,
yeah, it was like $10, maybe $10.
Yeah. But then it's also been showing up a ton in Modern and Pioneer. So with the OP announcement that happened recently, with those formats getting a little bit more love, obviously the blue-white control players or the control players are just like picking up their copies because it's proven itself. It's very good.
Yeah. All right. So then let's talk about Odawara, Soaring City.
So same, I think
at number 3. At number 3.
Everything we said about Eiganjo kind of fits for Odawara too. It's just that because it's blue, it just fits in a more homes. That's pretty much it. I mean, the fact that it's an uncounterable ability, like multiple times now, I've Odawara through a Teferi. It being able to go through to play under a Teferi is a big game. For the most part, though, it's fulfilling the role that Eiganjo is, and that it's kind of just a free roll removal spell that you can play. It's just higher on the list because it has more homes because it's blue than white.
And not only does it have more homes, but it has more targets like creature, enchantment, artifact, planeswalker, all of those. That it feels unfair. This card would be played just fine if it just said creature, and it's not even close. Like how much better it is because it just has every one of those things. It's basically like that's a non-land permanent, right? It's a non-land permanent, but it can get lands if it lands an artifact, right? Like so, you can bounce it to the Synod, right? Yeah. So it's non-land, but it doesn't have the non-land clause. So and it can bounce an Urza Saga, even better. You can bounce your own Urza Saga if you're playing 8
Trigger on the stack,
right?
Yeah. Trigger on the stack, bounce by Urza Saga, replay Urza Saga, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously this card sees play in 8 cast, and it does well there as like a 2 of. I mean, just this card is. I don't know why this card isn't a $20-$25 card, and the next card on the list is more expensive than that, honestly.
I mean, I think because Odawara is a role player as opposed to. I mean, we can just dive into the next card.
Yeah, the next card is Boseiju, who endures. So why is this so much more expensive than Odawara? Which, in my opinion, like Legacy is a blue format. You should be playing Odawara if you can. Right. So
Odawara being 4 mana. At best, it's probably 3 mana. Only the 8 cast deck with a Scion and Emery on the table.
Scion Emery, is 2 mana.
Could get it down to 2 mana. There's no deck in the format that's going to get it down to 1 mana. If you get it down to 2 mana, that's already fine. But like it means that your board is already developed and it becomes a disperse.
Yeah.
It's obviously it's good. It's uncounterable, right? Like Odawara is obviously good. Boseiju being 2 mana, which is a rate that you'd pay for a disenchant anyway.
Exactly.
And it's uncounterable, and it's in the color that wants it, and it fulfills a bunch of it fulfills the role of solving a bunch of problems that decks want.
That decks that want to play this have a couple of problem cards that they need to be able to deal with, and this card is the answer to those problems, right?
I think that's what it is. Like Odawara is a role player. It didn't solve an issue that was hindering any decks prior to its existence.
If you slam a Blood Moon against 8 cast, they're going to be like, sure,
whatever. Yeah, it's like okay, like I can't play Urza Saga, but like how about I just make a bunch of Thopters?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing 12 post, if you're playing lands, if you're playing the new mana bond deck, if you're playing 4-color control and want to be able to get through a Blood Moon and have access to something like this, because it's uncounterable and because it's a land, so it has a bunch of synergies with like Loam and Once Upon a Time that can be found off of. It's like it solves the problem of the hate against those decks, which means that it's just that's something that those decks wanted anyway. And so the fact that this does it in such a tight bow, it's because it's only 2 mana. And because it's an untapped green source, it just fulfills all of these things that those decks already desperately wanted.
All right, so, all right. I'll accept your that's why it's more expensive. Why isn't Otawara slightly more expensive? At least half the cost of this card. It's like $7-8 right now.
The difference between, I mean, Boseiju allowing them to get a land means that it is way better in the decks looking to answer a hammer than it is with Odawara, which is kind of just being able to bake a removal spell into your mana base. You know, it's like Odawara isn't like, maybe you can play it in show and tell, and it's like it serves as like a function of Boseiju and show and tell if you're not playing green. But you're not thinking when you put Odawara into your deck, it's like, I'm playing Odawara because I need to answer X. Whereas Boseiju, it's like, I'm playing Boseiju because I need to hit Blood Moon. I need to hit Back to Basics. I need to hit any of the permanent hate. I need to be able to clear those things off the table. Even catching an opposing Thespian stage to stop a Merit Lage activation, and it's uncounterable. Removing Chalice or a Trinisphere. Those things all matter for the decks that want to be able to play Boseiju, whereas Odawara doesn't have that same necessity. So I think that's why
it's just an added bonus to not playing an island in those decks.
Yeah, I will say that, like, even though Boseiju is a high winner on our list, it's way cooler than what people thought it was coming in. Like, everybody thought that when it was first spoiled, everybody lost their minds. I mean, so did we, but it did not fulfill the hype. Yeah, but it
still works. Still works very well.
So I think like it didn't reach the hype, but that's also because the hype was insane.
The hype was hype.
It is absolutely proven.
We had hype for the hype, right? Yeah.
It's proven itself as a legacy playable that will be around forever, but it just didn't reach the hype as like this, you know, here goes the end of all enchantments and artifacts for the rest of forever. It didn't reach that hype, but it's still. Is it too expensive? Yeah, I think it's too expensive. But the thing is that it's also in every single EDH deck, and that's what's driving prices. So
yes, this is true. All right, so we're here. We're at number 1, Phil, and number 1 is Kappa Cannoneer.
Pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, pretty obvious. Like, come on. I mean, this basically created an entire deck, right? Like this card launched at least into tier 1 an entire deck.
So Urza's Saga is what made. So the combination of Thought Monitor and Urza's Saga coming out MH2 is what made 8-cast the deck.
8-cast the deck, but this launched it into the tier 1 of those decks.
Kappa Cannoneer gave it a whole other axis. Now instead of being able to go wide, it got to drop the Echo LED part of the deck, which and get rid of the Hull Breachers, which didn't work with anything else really. It just like was more card draw, but you already did well on that axis.
You're already drawing plenty of cards.
So having just a gigantic beater that can close the game and that's really tough to interact with. This
Ward 4 breeds hexproof, like as far as like oof.
And this card is functionally the marriage between Hogak and TNM.
Yeah, this is what we were saying before. Yeah, is this? Yeah, this card it reads like hexproof or time walk. Because what's going to happen is your opponent's going to pay 5 mana to sword this thing, and you're going to be like, counterspell. I'll just force of will that. Yeah. And you're going to keep playing Magic. They wasted 5 mana to try and counter your guy that you just stopped probably. Yeah. Because it took them too long to deal with it, right? They probably played on like turn 3, and now they've got a 6/6 that's unblockable, like True Name Nemesis, right? That's unblockable, slamming it against you. It's just so goddamn good, man.
It's extremely good. It's at most going to be a 2-turn clock unless you're gaining some amount of relevant life. But there was one tournament that I played where I played Hogak, and I had a Hogak against their Kappa Cannoneer, and I recognized in that moment that I was like, oh, they both have pseudo evasion in trample versus unblockable, and then they're both gigantic undercosted beaters. Like Kappa Cannoneer is 1 mana, Hogak is no mana, but the difference is that Hogak still has to care about Karakas and removal spells, whereas Kappa just doesn't. It just doesn't have to at all.
Doesn't have
it's
to
just better.
care about spells or abilities. Like this doesn't even get around your opponent's Odawara Soaring City, right? Like it doesn't get around Boseiju, you know, like
it's just way better.
Ward 4 is bonkers. Ward is insanity. I love Ward as an ability over like Hexproof, because Hexproof feels very boring to me. And also like you don't get to do tricks like your opponent's like, oh, I guess I will swords it. And you're like, counter it. Your opponent's just like, I'll sword your other guy, you know, in time, saving the mana. Like the fact that you can put your opponent in a position where he spends 5 mana in a turn because he's going to die to Kappa Cannoneer in like a couple of turns, and then you stop that from happening because he's wasted all his mana and can't follow it up with another counter spell. Like that, Ward is almost better in that scenario than Hexproof is, because they can't spend that mana on anything else.
Yes.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers. This card is bonkers, guys.
It's bonkers, and it is not only is it easily the winner of the set, even though it's not in the main set, it's in the Commander product. It's the one that has propelled 8cast into tier 1, and the deck is incredibly hard to play against because it has access to 8 Force of Wills as well. This giving it a whole other access to be able to close games a lot faster. It's one of those things where if you go into a major event and you're not prepared to deal with Kappa Cannoneer, you're likely to lose to it. And you also just bought into the deck, right?
Yeah, I said screw it and I bought into the deck. So hopefully Wizards of the Coast does not ban Urza Saga in the next couple of months, so I can grind my value out with this deck. But yeah, I finally have a second legacy deck that I can play. Now I've got Death Shadow with Berserk, and I've got 8cast. So I finally again have another tier 1 deck.
When you sit across the table from Zach at an event, you know, bring your Pyroblast. Make sure that you got your Seeds of Innocence ready to go.
It's real simple, guys. Here's how you know. Here's how you know. I'm going to show you real quick. This one is Death Shadow.
Wow! Look at the insider information.
This one is
you gotta watch the YouTube video to be able to see the.
Yeah, you'll never know otherwise.
You can't hear it.
Yeah,
you can't hear it. You gotta see it.
Yep. Anyhow, I think that does it for us. Real quick, I want to thank the Patreon supporters. Yeah, you guys have been really great helping us out with some cool ideas for episodes, some deck techs and stuff. We've got another deck tech coming in real soon. I think I might even get a local Maverick. Well, Maverick isn't the word because that's a deck. Local burn player. Burn Maverick is what I was going to say. Eric Higby on to do burn, so that'll be a real fun episode.
So a burn connoisseur, not a burn Maverick player.
Yeah.
We're not a burn
Maverick in the way that, like, you know,
like
John
like
McCain
the
is a Maverick.
The word, not the
Yeah.
If somebody's like, you know, you sleeve up, you know, your exalted creatures and burn, obviously.
Yeah. No.
Lava spike plus the cat or whatever that you know.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have a burn clinic pretty soon. I've got a couple other deck ideas that I want to do, including Merfolk. And we'll eventually get Phil to do miracles.
Yeah. I gotta do miracles just so that I want to be able to take you all the way through the different instances of miracles to where it has evolved to now, which there isn't really a miracles deck now. It's like a combination of like some people who it's evolved into like 4-color, but then also sort of evolved into like Jeskai Days and doing. But the thing is that one is a mid-range tap out deck and the other one is a prison combo deck, and neither of them are really control decks. So it's like, I don't know, I'll get into it.
Yeah.
It's coming sometime in the future. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to check it out when it comes in.
Phil, are you a Night of the Living Dead George Romero fan at all?
I am not.
You're not. That's sad. So I just want to show everybody this really cool pin I have.
Show them the pin.
Yeah. This is Return of the Living Dead. I don't know if you know the guy. This is Snipe from Return of the Living Dead as a pin. Super cool. He's the guy in the in Return of the Living Dead that says, "What do you think is a costume man? It's the way of life." Talking about punk rock, and I'm a big fan of that dude. So I just thought I wanted to show that pin that I picked up just recently. Anyhow, that does it for the cast. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to support us, it's patreon.com/eternaldurdles. You can read it right there. Come on. Anyhow, thanks so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Boom.
Hey, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out this other video, and if you can, please support us on patreon.com.